Alright, just making sure everything's checking out here. You can see I've done some oops. That's why we have to be very aware of how we do these things. So I'm hoping what you guys are now seeing is Drew Beeson shooting at the ski mask, and then Junk Food Joey doing what he does best, and Junk Food eating the scrolling banner that is going past you here. Today is an Eron's News Day. My wife bought me the book People versus the BLEEP by Thien Ho. Sometimes known in court as Mr. Daho, which I recently learned. Alright, let's see if I can direct drag. I don't think I can, so I think we're going to have to do this kind of one at a time. We'll talk a little bit about this. Okay, because here's the thing. I've essentially read this entire book in one day. The way where we currently stand right now, and this is going to leave the door open to more Eron's News or more stuff going in the future, is that the parts of Thien Ho's life where he talks about growing up in Vietnam, I skipped them. Parts that refer to other serial offenders or other cases that he's prosecuted in his career as the Assistant District Attorney of Sacramento, I've skipped those parts. I've also skipped the parts where the murders and attacks are recounted in the canonical East Area Rape series and original Night Stalker phase of the series. Now, I know that a lot of people would say, well, you're skipping over a lot of and that's true. But the reason that I did that was that at first glance, it seemed to me like those sections of the book recounting the attacks were essentially just the Quester files. Now, that might not be true because I didn't actually read them. But at first glance, it was a basic retelling of the narrative of the crimes, and I've read a lot about those crimes, and so I know what happened in those crimes, for the most part, unless there's new information completely in. And I, so far, was more interested in the parts of the book that describe his capture, parts of the book that describe his early life in Rancho Cordova, and then parts of the book in the investigation. A lot of the book is the story of the court case, which obviously that's what you expect from the assistant district attorney of a case. But I will be going back through the book, through all the attacks, specifically and only those attacks, and reading them meticulously and looking for new information. So, we do have Eron's News from the sections of the book that I have read. It's 315 pages long. And I guess we'll just jump into those sections. Now, here we go. Hold on. Eron's News. Oh, let's call it Thien Ho 1. How about that? And then we can look at it. Alright, Thien Ho 1. And we'll just read some from the page, and then we're going to talk specifically about the highlighted sections as they come up. Because some of these things are not as groundbreaking as I thought, or whatever. And then there's parts of it that are just kind of disturbing information that essentially we did already know this information. I have personally read it elsewhere. But here we go. Let's look at the first one in the little sequence here. On screen, we see lawyers flipping through old law books and poring over dusty files, hoping to find a loophole in the statuses or an overlooked piece of evidence to break a case. Rarely does real life mirror fiction, but sometimes it does, and sometimes we need it to. "What the fuck, Rod?" I yelled, not at my supervisor, but at the predicament we were in. Being tactical and constantly playing chess in the courtroom, I am my father's son. Fueled by passion and running hot because I care deeply about justice, I am my mother's son. Why the fuck did we throw away all the DNA evidence? Are you telling me that we don't have any semen or blood left from any of the rapes in Sacramento? Which, of course, any serious Huron's researcher, we all know this. No. In the early 80s, it was tossed after the statute of limitations ran out, and we couldn't charge those crimes anymore, Rod responded quietly, rocking back and forth in his red chair with his eyes closed. Here's where the highlighting begins, so we're going to start discussing. I lowered my head and started rubbing my temple, my mind racing. Wait. We still have the pre-tied shoelaces found next to Brian Maggiore, right? With these advancements in DNA technology, we can do more testing? Yeah. Rod opened his eyes. I'm not sure. I think we may have lost it after we sent it to Orange County for more testing back in the early 2000s. The pre-tied shoelaces found next to Maggiore's body in a neighborhood where the EAR frequently prowled and attacked was a key piece of circumstantial evidence tying him to the Maggiore murders, and now we couldn't find the shoelaces. Overwhelmed with disbelief and anger, I couldn't stop cursing like a sailor. So this question's been asked a lot in, Huron's research. People want to know what evidence specifically ties Junk Food Joey to the murder of Brian and Katie Maggiore. While I will say the evidence that actually ties Junk Food Joey to those murders is very vague and seemingly minimalistic, it's actually very powerful evidence. If you're willing to accept some assumptions. What I will say is the proof that Junk Food Joey killed Brian and Katie is definitely there. We know, and just to give you a quick little bullet points list of things, we know that the street where they were gunned down on La Alegria Drive experienced dozens of hang-up phone calls and prowling activities in the weeks leading up to the murder of Brian and Katie. We found out a lot of this information from Detective Ken Clark from Sacramento, who's written about extensively in this book, when he went on Morph's True Crime podcast and talked about the old case files and the Maggiore murders. If you haven't heard that podcast, I highly recommend get on YouTube and look up Ken Clark interviews True Crime Guy or something like that. And you're going to get the Maggiore murders and the Cordova cat. And I think that's it. There's two or three. Oh, and there's the American River Hospital situation that didn't really pan out. But what we know is that in the weeks prior to the Maggiore double murder, the houses on La Alegria Drive and in that area, in that vicinity, I don't know the street names too much, Logaway, La Alegria Drive, and something else, basically were getting hang-up called every single night at exactly 8 p.m. And on the night of the murders, the last hang-up call came in at like 8-something p.m. The Maggiores are murdered at about 9:15, I think, is about the time of that crime. And then after that happens, hang-up calls never again afflict that street of houses. We also know, we're going to get into the ballistics a little bit stuff too. I think that there's more slides for that information as we go forward, but we know that they were shot and killed with either a Colt or Moroku revolver. And we know that shoelaces were found at the scene of Brian Maggiore's body, approximately 12 to 15 feet away from his body. It's basically hypothesized that as EAR, D'Angelo, drew his weapon, the shoelaces caught on that revolver and pulled from his pocket. I have disputed the Tony Reed's assumption of the events where the shoelaces were brought out as some type of an abduction scheme. I do not think that that's the case at all. I do not think Brian and Katie were ever going to be abducted by the East Area Rapist. I think what happened was he drew his pistol, the shoelaces caught on the hammer, the shoelaces fell on the ground. That's why those shoelaces are found from the shooter's position near Brian Maggiore's body. So the shoelaces have become this major plot point in the investigation and the research of the Maggiore murders, because they were the subject of a lot of dispute for a lot of years, both the shoelaces and the murders in general. But the shoelaces were constantly debated about on both the AETV boards years and years and years and years ago, almost 20 years ago now, and the pro boards. Should I reserve some time to talk trash on Drifter? I can't stand Drifter, by the way. I can't stand him. He is such an idiot. I am not surprised he disappeared when EAR was caught, because he had made so many inaccurate assumptions for so long, and he's such an arrogant pile of trash about it, that he really comes across as just a completely insufferable and obnoxious person. And I think I'm going to start just skipping over anything he writes, because it's literally too annoying for me to read him. Don't know where he went, but Drifter had no idea what he was talking about and thought he knew everything. So the shoelaces came up as a major point of argument for a long time, because some people said that they clearly indicated that the East Area Rapist was involved in this murder, or these murders, and some people said that shoelaces can just be anywhere. In a sense, yes, but also not very likely. Generally, you don't walk around your neighborhood and just happen to find pre-tied shoelaces lying around. Yes, they could be there, but they're almost certainly related to the murders. And then some people say, well, maybe they're related to the murders, but it doesn't mean it's the East Area Rapist. Okay, fine. So then, when Sacramento announced their charges against Jung Fu Joey and said, we're going to charge him for the double murder of the Maggiores, everybody said, well, do they have any evidence? And even before he was captured, people were asking, is there DNA on the shoelaces? This wouldn't be your conventional seminal fluid DNA or blood fluid DNA or anything like that. But instead it could be touch DNA, like skin cells and things like that might be on the shoelaces from whoever had tied these shoelaces. And so people asked for a long time, is one of the holdback pieces of evidence that the shoelaces have touch DNA on them? And I think up until the release of this book, nobody knew the answer to that, except for, of course, law enforcement. Now it appears that the shoelaces were lost by Sacramento in the early 2000s, and they, in fact, did not have a DNA connection to this case. So, you may notice from some of the information that was leaked to the press or was discussed in the press when this book was either about to be released or had just been released, that Ken Clark tells Jung Fu Joey that they have DNA evidence linking him to the Maggiore murders. That is almost certainly not true. He was almost certainly lying to him when he said that. Because, as we now know, the shoelaces were lost. So we don't still have them. Nor have they been properly analyzed for DNA evidence. So let's see. Rod tried to place their actions into context. In their defense, law enforcement back then couldn't have foreseen the advancements that brought us genetic genealogy. I think we should just stop trying to defend this type of bumbling incompetency. It's the same type of bumbling incompetency that had the cigarettes in the D.B. Cooper case thrown in the trash by the Las Vegas field offices of the FBI. Hopefully, what we're seeing here with evidence just being thrown away before the advent of DNA testing, hopefully this will be a lesson to investigative agencies going forward to stop throwing away evidence just because you can't presently assign evidentiary value to it. So, if a criminal leaves something behind, let's say it's a matchstick or something, and you can't get DNA on it, and you can't get fingerprints, and you can't get anything from it, don't throw it away. It is probably relevant to the investigation of that case. Stop throwing evidence in homicide cases away. There is no excuse for it. There is no excuse for why Sacramento destroyed the rape kits. We all know that. And while some people have tried to defend them and say, oh, well, they didn't know that, he was going to become the original Night Stalker. They didn't know he was a serial killer, blah, blah, blah. If there was even an inkling of suspicion that EAR was responsible for the double murder of the Maggiores, then throwing away EAR-related rape kits, while it is in accordance with the destruction of the evidence from in statute of limitations circumstances, we shouldn't throw it away because science might catch up. And what if someday you can pull, God knows what, out of a matchstick that we don't know about right now and identify an offender. So just because you don't know about it now doesn't mean that the item is trash, okay? Let's try to do better about that going forward, if we can. So there is no in their defense. They fucking lost the shoelaces. There's no excuse for it. Move on. Admit that you fucked up and move on. Fortunately, we have a lot of other circumstantial evidence to indicate that Junk Food Joey is responsible for those double murders, and so let's just go forward with what we have and try not to cry too much about the thrown away shoelaces. But we shouldn't say, oh, well, they couldn't have known. Bullshit. Okay? So the shoelaces were lost. So there was no DNA evidence on those shoelaces, now confirmed. Let's see. Contra Costa didn't throw away their DNA, I responded, my blood still boiling. I returned to my office and closed my door. Then he tells a story about some Chinese proverb or some weird shit. And we're just going to move on from that. Okay. Little Chinese proverb part comes in there. I'm not sure if that's right. Now, I don't know if these images have ever been seen by anyone before. But here's 3 photos. Nothing groundbreaking, but just kind of interesting to see. Some new photos of D'Angelo in custody. This is Junk Food Joey. Hold on, let me make that bigger. This is Junk Food Joey on the day of his arrest, being led down the hallways of the police station or wherever he was held. So there he is. Actually, very shocking to see how much weight he lost from this time until he was sentenced in 2020. And then this is Junk Food Joey in the interrogation room. I think I can see a Dr. Pepper there. Possibly 2 Dr. Peppers, both of which are unopened. And then we have Junk Food Joey in his holding cell here. I don't know if these images... I've never seen this image before. This photograph right here that's on your screen. I've never seen this before. I don't know if anyone has ever seen it. But it's in the book, so I threw those in there so you guys can take a look at that. Delete that. Move on to the next one. Oops. God darn it. I don't know if anyone's ever seen this before. This is even less significant. But let's throw it up there anyway for you guys. This is investigators doing ground-penetrating radar tests in Junk Food Joey's backyard. By the way, new information regarding souvenirs. Souvenirs were never found at Junk Food Joey's house. At one point, this guy with the ground-penetrating radar on the divining rods believed that he had identified an area in the backyard where the soil had been disturbed. Investigators dug up that area and found nothing at all. So what this tells us, and I doubt anyone's going to be surprised, is that Junk Food Joey didn't keep his souvenirs in his house, which is not surprising given the massive manhunt that was underway for almost 40 years. Why would you keep your murder souvenirs in your house? Okay, moving forward. Here's some books. This is kind of stupid. It's just a photo of books that were found in his house. And I screenshotted these photographs because I thought that they were Junk Food Joey's books, but they're actually his daughter's books, so we're just going to skip them. The books are The Iceman, If I Did It by O.J. Simpson, Michael Jackson Unmasked, and Portrait of Something. But the point is they're actually not even his books, so we're just going to move forward. So one of the things that I found cool in this book was that there's a small section of it dedicated to the childhood of Junk Food Joey. Let's go like that. and just read it for you. Some of his early burglary stuff when he was a kid. What the heck is this, Joe? Asked Gary as he held the bottle in his hand and looked at its strange contents. Junk Fu Joey responded, "That's pubic hair." As Gary looked on in disgust, Junk Fu Joey continued, "Whenever I have sex with a girl, I always get a pubic hair and put it in the jar." Gary didn't want to hear anything more about it. D'Angelo spent his youth riding his bicycle everywhere, swimming in the river, and running in the concrete canals he would later use to escape from his crime scenes. On foot and on wheels, Junk Fu Joey came to be intimately aware of every street and neighborhood in Rancho Cordova. But more important for his future as a criminal, he knew all the secret paths and shortcuts, the hideouts and blind spots. As a teenager, he also developed a penchant for deviant behavior. In summer 1962, Fred Kane, who lived in Rancho Cordova and was about to begin Folsom High School, was swimming in the American River when he heard gunshots and then felt the water around him splashing. Looking up, he saw a teenager on the shore shooting at him. No fewer than 6 bullets whizzed past. Kane quickly swam ashore and ran up the embankment to confront the shooter, who was walking away with 2 other boys. His fist clenched and ready to rush the shooter, Kane yelled out to the group, who turned around. The shooter still had the .22 caliber rifle in his hand and warned that he would shoot and kill Kane if he attacked him. One of the other boys spoke up, "He's kind of crazy. You ought to just forget this and leave him alone." When Kane pointed to the shooter and asked, "What's his name?" the boy responded, "Joe D'Angelo." The group of 3 took off. Kane was angry at being shot at and determined to find his shooter. He recalls, "The next day I started trying to find him. I'm looking at all these hangouts, McDonald's, the bowling alley, different places. I heard he worked at the base and the swimming pool. I went there, but it was his day off. I was trying to catch him when he didn't have a gun, and I could just lay into him." While hanging out at the bowling alley later that day, Kane felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw Junk Fu Joey, who put his hands up and said, "I apologize for the other day, what I did, and if you want to fight me, it's all right. We can go around the back and have it on. But if you want to be my friend, I would like you to be my friend. I've got a car over here." Okay, so interesting that the I would like is actually retained here, because we see that with the East Area Rapist. He's always going, "I'll slip this knife into you and kill you while I'm looking for money, looking for money, looking for money." And he also says, what's the other one where he stutters? I don't know. Anyway, that's a thing that he does. He'll like repeat himself 5 times in a row, like in a weird kind of demented stutter that he does. The reason that I thought specifically this passage was kind of interesting and strange is that it indicates that Junk Fu Joey was shooting at living human beings with a .22 caliber rifle as early as 1962. So, for those of you in the Junk Fu Joey is Zodiac crowd, that's kind of interesting. Of course, it doesn't prove he's Zodiac, but, you know, weird. So, anyway. Just goes to show that he was a bad seed from a very young age. He was shooting at kids when he was a kid. So, let's move on from there. Junk Fu Joey. Let's see what this is. Hunted deer. Some stuff about Bonnie. I think we know a lot of this information. Here. He was, yeah, we know this information. Stuff about him climaxing 5 times over a 3-hour period. It's disgusting. Alright, here we go. Thien Ho 6, I believe. No, Thien Ho 5. Mr. Daho 5. Oops. Oh, hold on, everybody. I didn't see the chat yet. What's up, Mr. JSV? What's up, Murder Inc? And what's up, Kid Freshie? Just made a comment to Ned about you. Oh no, I'm nervous. It's illegal to throw away evidence in a murder. They knew EAR killed Maggiore and threw away... I know. Why would you believe anything this lying fuck says? Maybe, yeah, maybe you can say, oh, it's not real. Oh, jeez, don't call him Golden State Killer. Did Ned say he would stop making Zodiac... I didn't see Zodiac Monday today. Did he say he would stop making Zodiac content if he was caught? That's the thing. I don't think that would be the end at all. If we identify the Zodiac Killer, the true work has only just begun. I hope that... If you... Yeah, I mean, don't... Convey that point to Ned. Like, if we find out who fucking Zodiac is, then we can actually start researching him. Because until we actually know, it's just more bullshit like the bus bomb letter is a map. And I can't stand that. Yeah, there will be so much to discuss. I don't think Ned would even do that. I think maybe he might stop after a period of time. But I've gone on Ned's show to talk about Eurons too. So I think that Ned would continue Zodiac content. It's just it might not be permanent, and it might not. I don't know what he would do. But I hope that he realizes that if we do ever identify Zodiac, the hard work has only just begun. There's so much more to learn beyond the identity of the offender. I especially starting to build. I hope he's caught so I can stop doing this. I know. Poor Ned. Ned can stop whenever he wants. That's the funny thing about it, man. He's boxed himself into that. He can stop doing Zodiac Mondays whenever he wants. Okay. Again, D'Angelo stood out as professional but aloof and different. Chief Willick described the first and only time he visited Jung Fu Joey's house in Auburn, providing his boss a tour of the tiny home. He pointed out his wife's bedroom and then a separate room where he slept, identifying it as the one in which they would consummate their relationship. Of course he did that. Willick found it strange that a young couple slept... No, my wife bought this for me. We bought it as PDF. For like $6, something like that. The chief also noticed a lot of unwrapped drill sets, tools, and other miscellaneous merchandise strewn about the house. I actually like that we got the PDF version because I can just put it right on screen. So I'm happy that we did that. In July 1979, Ronald Stillwell was working at the Pay and Save store in Citrus Heights when he saw a customer shoplifting dog repellent. Yeah, it's okay. As the employee approached, I've actually already sent it around for free to like a couple people too, so I didn't forgive that much. As the employee approached, he could see something in the man's pants. When confronted, the thief ran out the front door, and Stillwell and another employee gave chase. After tackling the suspect, they found a hammer in his pants and saw he had defecated on himself. So, this is what I'm wondering. It's my opinion, interpretation, that when someone that's poop, isn't it? That's not pee. Somebody mentioned something. They were like, oh, I read the book, and it was kind of interesting. He pissed himself. He didn't piss himself. He pooped himself. As far as I know, defecation is fecal matter, isn't it? So he actually pooped himself when he was arrested for shoplifting. They restrained him, dragged him upstairs, and tied him to a chair before calling the police. It turned out that the shoplifter was a cop, Jung Fu Joey. I'm surprised he didn't shoot them. But anyway, after Jung Fu Joey's arrest for petty theft, Chief Willick fired him for bringing dishonor to the department and violating the public's trust. In a release statement, he noted, "It is very important that the community have the utmost trust and faith in its officers' integrity. When this trust and faith has been compromised..." Why did he put sick? That's not right. When this trust and faith has been compromised, officers can no longer effectively function in the community. Jung Fu Joey took the petty theft case to trial in October, testifying in his own defense and denying any intent to steal. The jury convicted him, and the judge sentenced him to 6 months probation and ordered him to pay $130 in fines or do 3 days of community service. Jung Fu Joey also filed a lawsuit against the Auburn Police Department and made a disability claim seeking stress leave. During a mandatory therapy session, Jung Fu Joey admitted that he had gone to the chief's house armed with a gun and an intent to kill his boss and peered through the windows trying to find his boss. Initially, the chief disregarded the potential threat until one night, his 4-year-old daughter climbed into his bed. She said she was scared because she had seen... So we know all this information, guys. This is not new. The only reason that I put this on here as new information is because he appeared to poop himself when he was arrested for shoplifting, or when he was detained prior to his arrest. That's the first time we've ever heard something like that from law enforcement. Normally they're like, no, we looked really hard, there's nothing. Like, with Paul Holes said that. But the ass ho, as you call him, is at least willing to say there might be a lot of unknown murders, because we have a period of time, it's like 3 years, I don't know the exact years, when they have no idea what he was doing in Southern California, in LA or something. So he could have been raping and murdering, and they just don't know. And he probably was. Because I don't know if I showed that. And that I could put that in on Iran's news episode we could talk about. But the thing is, with all these non-canonicals, it's like, let's just assume he did every fucking crime. It doesn't actually matter. What I want to know is anything that's just officially released. You know, he could have blown up the Challenger. We don't know at this point. Oh, however, I did come up with a challenge question or counter argument to some of your works. So look at all the crimes that, like, if you can account for Junk Food Joey's whereabouts every day ever, then you can rule out which crimes might. The point is, we need to figure out what he did. Let's also try to figure out what he didn't do. Like, let's look at all the crimes that are on your map and go, can we account for Junk Food Joey's behavior, life at any of these days? So, for example, if you have a Tustin power rapist, or the Tustin rapist, or the San Clemente power rapist cases, you could look at those and go, can we account for Junk Food Joey on any of these days? And yeah. But again, he could have done everything, and the problem is, I don't think... Well, then you got to account for his whereabouts, because I don't know what he was... Anyway. Figuring out what he did, it's very hard to do that without DNA. Even if you can provide a very compelling case for, yes, he may have done this crime, unless you have a semen sample, it's never going to get accepted by the masses at this point. So... So then let's go. Oh, this is the Poops Himself slide. We're going to move on from Poops Himself and go to the next one. What's this one? Something about the Maggiors here. What was it? Oh, I'll just read this part to you because I don't want to save it. It's so minimal right here. It says... I view them as victims of the BLEEP. I will, however, note a few facts that show the strange ways in which the universe connects us all. One was Junk Food Joey's daughters, a physician. One of Junk Food Joey's daughters, a physician, was employed by the same hospital as the son of Dr. Robert Offerman. So that's kind of weird. And then the Ken Clark one was kind of stupid. So we'll move on from that. And then, let's see. That's the main connection. That was kind of weird. That Junk Food Joey's daughter worked at the same hospital as the son of Offerman. Okay, here we go. This is new information for you. It appears. Because I think this has never been officially acknowledged. It's been hypothesized, but it's never been officially acknowledged. And I'm not talking about the Moroku stuff at the top. That's gonna be one thing, and then we're gonna go to the next thing. I nearly jumped out of my chair when I heard Moroku. I knew it was an uncommon pistol. There were 4,500 of them ever made, I believe. I had just read in the Maggior investigative file that the bullet removed from Brian's body had been analyzed by the crime lab's ballistic expert. From his examinations of the striations and markings on the bullet, lands and grooves, he speculated that it had been fired from either a Colt or Moroku pistol. Without DNA evidence connecting D'Angelo to the Maggior murders, I needed every piece of circumstantial evidence I could find. So this indicates to us that as Tony Reed hypothesized and as Tony Reed kind of publicized with his ballistics report findings on the Maggior murders, that the same pistol was used in the Maggior double murders. And you can actually see a massive Sacramento law enforcement cover-up that happened right here in plain sight. I think that we have, as researchers and collectively, have determined that Sacramento was engaged in a cover-up, and we can prove it with their own information. First of all, they refused to acknowledge the caliber of the pistol that was used, or the caliber of the bullet that was used to murder the Maggiors. They said it was a bullet of unknown caliber, which is obviously ridiculous. Anyone can measure a bullet's caliber. All you need to do is measure the base of the bullet, and so that's absurd. But they also appear to have just covered up the fact that Snelling and the Maggiores were killed by the same weapon. Why would they do this? Because they don't want us to know that it was obvious from the fucking beginning that the Visalia ransacker was the East Area Rapist. This case was always solvable. This case did not need DNA to solve it. It needed DNA to confirm it, but to solve it, and to land on the identity of the offender, all we needed to know was that the Visalia ransacker was the East Area Rapist, and that Jung Fu Joey was the head of the Exeter burglary task force. You know, because then we could track his movement. If we looked at the Visalia ransacker spree and we said, let's investigate all the cops out of Exeter, which is 122675 claims that they did, but guys, no, they said they ruled him out because he was too swarthy. What the fuck are you talking about? There's a picture of him. He's not swarthy. I don't know what they're talking about. I need to see receipts. They claim they have the receipts. I haven't seen them, so produce them. Basically, if we looked at the Exeter burglary task force, and said, well, who was on that? Well, the head of the burglary task force was Joseph D'Angelo. Let's see where he moved next. Oh, he moved to Auburn in 1976. That's weird. And then more evidence, tracing his life. But of course, hindsight is 20/20, and it's just a lot easier to do it with DNA. But we do know that Sacramento has been engaged in a cover-up, that the Visalia ransacker and the EAR are the same person from 1976 onward. And that they were told by Visalia that it was the same guy, and they were angry and didn't want that to be so. My guess is the same reason why they wanted people not to think that the EAR had killed the Maggiores, because they didn't want people to think that EAR was a murderer. Because if people thought EAR was a murderer and he couldn't be caught, there would be a massive panic, which is what we've all heard about. So, if there's proof, I was told Jung Fu Joey stole the gun used in Z murder in Rancho Cordova. Possible. Need to see the proof of that. You can get a good idea where he is by the prowling. Steven Sample would be a good band name. Maybe. Kid Freshie. Kid Freshie's always coming out of left field. We love Kid Freshie for that. From time to time, he had assisted in the search for the Visalia ransacker, and he was the ransacker. So I meant to read this. When the responding officers asked McGowan what the ransacker looked like, he said that the shadowy figure they had been chasing looked familiar. While he could not put a name on the face, he had seen him before. Joseph D'Angelo was a sergeant at the Exeter Police Department a few miles away from Visalia. From time to time, he had assisted in the search for the Visalia ransacker. So that's been now confirmed that Jung Fu Joey was helping Visalia police with their search for the Visalia ransacker while he was simultaneously the Visalia ransacker. Everybody already kind of assumed that. We already kind of thought, is it not probable that Visalia would have had an Exeter burglary task force team come look at their crimes? And, of course, that would have been led by Jung Fu Joey. But now we got it from the horse's mouth, from the assistant DA of Sacramento, that Jung Fu Joey was, in fact, engaged or involved in the investigation into the Visalia ransacker home invasions and burglaries. So we now know that for sure. Moving on to the next slide. Let's see. Is there anything on here? Why did I screenshot this? Yeah, true crime. Oh, here we go. I think that I made a new... Okay. I thought I highlighted this in... Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Oh, jeez. Alright, so I want to show you where Sacramento is still lying about EAR. They are still doing it. They can't stop doing it. They are addicted to lying about this case. Here we go. These people need to attend 12-step meetings for fucking being pathological liars. Here we go. I went on to connect the entire series of crimes projecting the Robin Williams sketch. This is the first time I've ever heard it called that. You guys probably know it better as Maggiore Revised. It's over here in color behind me. This is the sketch that he's talking about. That's called the Maggiore Composite Revised. So that's the first time I've ever heard someone say Robin Williams sketch, but supposedly Thien Ho knew it as that, so let's keep moving on. I call it Maggiore Revised. Just as with the Ransacker cases, when Junk Food Joey's face was exposed and a composite sketch released to the public, he never committed another rape in Sacramento. The distinctive EAR crimes stopped in our county. That is a lie. That is not what happened. I don't know why this is being told in court on the record as if it's true. I believe that this particular discussion actually happened on the record in court, which would be very, very dangerous for the assistant district attorney of this case to be fucking lying on the court record, because I can prove to you that that's not true. Here we go. Let's jump into it. If anyone remembers the Little Pocket attack. Now, there are people who are saying that there are unconfirmed, non-canonical, yet genuine East Area Rapist attacks in Sacramento in 1979. I'm not saying it's not true, but what I am saying is that we've never received law enforcement's confirmation. What we do have is a canonical attack from a place called Little Pocket in Sacramento. And I will pull it up for you right here. Here we go. April 14th, 1978. So for the keen observer, that is about 2 months, almost 2.5 months after the murder of Brian and Katie Maggiore. This is on Casalata Way, and it's a textbook East Area Rapist attack. Should we read it, or, I mean... It's so obviously EAR. Yeah. Anyway, that's Little Pocket, and that's April of 1978. So we actually know for sure that well, which Zodiac murderer are you talking about, and what's the proof of that? Not saying it didn't happen, just saying let's see the proof. Oh, yeah, I have seen that on... I thought it was on Reddit, but yeah, if it's on Pro Boards, then... What's up, Zap? We do know... My LG? I don't know what that means. Oh, IG? I don't have Instagram. So we do know that... he did continue to attack in Sacramento after he was seen at the Maggiore scene. Now, I guess you could counter-argue that and say, well, when was the composite released of the Maggiore Composite Revised? It could have been released after the Little Pocket attack, and maybe that's true, in which case, then I don't know what else to say. However, if you believe that the 1979 Sacramento rape that was recently in the Motherboard article is in fact the East Area Rapist, which is it, you know, we just need to prove, we just need the evidence. Like, I believe it is him, but I need to see the medical records released, and Sacramento likes to hide stuff from us. That's their favorite thing to do. There's not much in this book that's new information. It's all very, very minor stuff. Okay, where's the next one? So they supposedly lost the bullet. They found it later. So I screenshotted that prematurely. As you can see, oh, my informant saw the gun. I know, but I need better proof than that. I can't just take... If I take everyone's word for everything that I read online, where would we be, you know? I need some evidence. I need some info. What firearm? How do you know what firearm was used by Zodiac? We really don't even know. Are you talking about the J.C. Higgins Model 80? Are you talking about the unknown firearm used at Blue Rock Springs? Are you talking about the unknown firearm used at the Paul Stein scene? Which Zodiac firearm is being used here? And how do they know that it's the same gun? So you got to remember, there's going to be people who are going to show up and sell you crazy shit online. Like, you need to demand proof from those people. How do they know? We don't even know what fucking guns Zodiac used. We only know one of his. We know one of Zodiac's firearms conclusively, and we know, and technically you could argue that it could be one of two. So we basically know one of Zodiac's firearms conclusively, and we think we know the Lake Berryessa firearm conclusively. We believe it to have been a 1911 Colt 45, but it also could have been a Browning hammerless, chambered in 32 ACP, and we simply don't know, because we're only going off of Brian Hartnell's witness testimony on that. So we actually don't know, like, basically any of Zodiac's guns, because it was Joe closest, really, who spent all his time with Joe. It's, how do we know what firearms were used? Really, how do we know what firearms were used by Zodiac? Or is this the J.C. Higgins Model 80? Is it J.C. Higgins Model 101C, which is... So the weapon at Lake Herman Road could either be a J.C. Higgins Model 80 or a J.C. Higgins Model 101C. I believe it to have been a Model 80, which is a pistol. The 101C is a rifle. But I think that it was a pistol. And that, I guess, just really comes down to what you think it was, because we don't know the answer to that either. But it's narrowed down to those two choices. And then same with the Berryessa weapon. We don't know what kind of weapon killed Darlene Ferrin. We don't know what kind of weapon killed Paul Stein. That information is probably lost to history at this point, or is in the holdback files. If you want to sign a petition to release all Zodiac-related SFPD files, I have the link down there on the screen, and you can go there and sign that. It takes about 3 seconds. Let's see where we are right now on that. Actually, I want to know how many signatures we have. Change.org/P. Release all Zodiac files. Where are we? We're at 546 signatures, so signatures are slowing down. If you are seeing this, go sign it. I know, but sign it. Show at least your support before the eyes of your creator that you want for us to identify all the holdback evidence. That's the best we can do. The other thing we can attempt to do is to break into the Department of Justice, rappel down from the ceiling, and steal the vault. I have previously hypothetically advocated for that from someone in the community, but I'm not going to do it because I simply have too much in my life to burn down by doing so if I'm captured. Yo soy un capturado if I do that. So, okay, all that being said, you can see my email address down here on the screen. I can forward you the PDF of this book. Because there really isn't very much new in it. That's why I haven't gone over the murders and the rapes yet from the book, and I do intend to. But for the most part, we really don't have a lot of new information. It's and part of that is because we're such nerds in Iran. Like the dedicated researchers of the EAR case are such nerds about this case that we know all these fine details. So there really isn't much to know, for the most part, it seems. Now, there could be some groundbreaking shit hidden away. But until I see that, we just have to assume that it's just not there until it comes out. Now, am I saying that Sacramento handled this case well? Not at all. I think they did a fucking terrible job. And then when finally it came time to use investigative genetic genealogy, a technique that was already suggested to them and already in play, they put a poster boy, Paul Holes, out to claim that he made it up and to take all the credit for the capture of the Irons, when in fact it was a ton of people on pro boards who said it 5 years before. So, what's this pinging sound? Oh, it's Jaron Campanella. What's up, Jaron? Let's see what Jaron says. He says, life was better when I thought dumb shit. That's not true, Jaron. Cheer up, Jaron. Hold on. will tell him living in the truth is always better than thinking dumb shit. Cheer up, Jeranism. So, alright. Those of you who are wondering, in case you've never heard of Jeranism, he's the world's most famous flat earther, former flat earther, and one of my good friends online. And it was actually his work in Antarctica that convinced me that we live on a spinning ball, and that is why my live stream now says live from a spinning ball, because Jaren confirmed it. 22 semi-automatic pistol. Okay, so it has to be the J.C. Higgins Model 80. So does he have proof that he owned one? And so forth. Let's see what Jaren says now. He says, true, true. Of course, Jaren. What a good guy Jaren is. He went to Antarctica and he proved that we live on a spinning ball, and then he got just attacked by all these mindless flat earthers who just couldn't handle it. 22 semi-automatic pistol. Okay, so it has to be the J.C. Higgins Model 80. So we have to now see that this person owned a J.C. Higgins Model 80 before that time. Did he ever report the weapon stolen? Do we have a police report for the stolen weapon? Ask him for proof, because I can tell you what weapon it's the Lake Herman Road pistol. And it's also possible that Lake Herman Road was not carried out with a pistol. I think it was, but we can't rule out the possibility that it was possibly a J.C. Higgins Model 101C, which is the other possibility for the Lake Herman Road murder weapon. So I would ask your informant for proof that they owned a J.C. Higgins Model 80 before the date of December 20th, 1968, and if they reported that weapon stolen to the police, I would ask for the police report of the stolen weapon, and so forth. So, possible. I'm not saying that Junk Fu Joey can't be Zodiac. He's actually a way better suspect than fucking Don Chaney. But there's a lot of other stuff to get around before that can be compellingly argued to me. So, this has been Eron's News, live from a spinning ball.